So I got a few messages from people asking me to do a walkthrough of my setup at home. I was a little hesitant, but I decided to go ahead and do one. When I use the word studio, I am referring to a room or workstation where I can work on a video or graphics project, as well as produce, write, record, or even practice my music. It doesn't refer to anything super impressive or claiming to be a professional studio. It's just my personal space where I get my work done. I will often refer to it as my studio, my desk, or my setup. And if it had its own room, I would even call it my office. Today, I have a desk with equipment arranged on it to my preference. My setup is nothing grand, and it's not even complete with all the necessary proper gear and acoustic treatment, but I wanted to do this early walkthrough video so I can later look back at how I started and document my progress in the next few years and share it with you guys. Some of you may or may not know this, but my desk is located in my bedroom. Yes, I'm a bedroom producer and I have no shame in admitting that. Before even having my desk set up, I've been able to produce with nothing more than a pair of headphones and a PC laptop, running Fruity Loops while doing the rough mixing and mastering in several car audio tests. Some of these tracks you've heard and some tracks I produced or remixed were actually accepted by corporate level record labels. I'm not claiming my tracks were perfect because there's always room for improvement. And I don't claim to be a guru at producing, mixing, and mastering. But the bottom line is you can get some awesome results based on making the best of what you use. Having the best gear and not knowing how to use it will never result in a good quality final. This is going to be my setup until I move to a new house, hopefully later in 2015, where I plan to have a dedicated room for my studio. As I said, my setup is in my bedroom, but it wasn't always on a desk. I started making music with a laptop and headphones right on my bed. Sometimes I still like to work on my bed, so I have this 32-foot USB 2.0 cable that runs all the way from one of the hubs at the desk, so I can have access to the external hard drives, as well as the audio interface, which by the way makes great for when watching movies on your laptop. When I move to a new house and have a separate room, I feel like I still want some sort of workstation desk in my bedroom, as well as maybe a futon in the studio room. Because whether you agree or disagree if it's the healthiest thing to do or not, I personally feel that I'm more productive when I'm not hurting my back sitting on a chair all day. And there's days where I feel less energetic and I want to be more comfortable when I do my work. Over here I also have a secondary MacBook charger so I don't have to take the one at the desk, as well as a 10-foot lightning cable for my iPad and iPhone whenever I need access to that straight from the hub. When I first got my Axiom MIDI keyboard and before I got the desk, I had the keyboard and laptop stand sitting on top of one of my plastic drawers that I rolled towards my bed, and I used the laptop stand to hold the MIDI drum pad and the APC 40. This setup was the beginning of my quote-unquote studio where I actually started to have hardware. The black drawer seems to have stayed in the same position next to my bed ever since I started that, since it still seconds as my laptop stand when I bring the laptop over here. The drawer is actually faced towards the desk for easy access from the chair and holds all the important cords and wires. I like to keep organized, so inside the black drawer holds all my wires and cables. The top drawer holds all computer related data cables. The second drawer holds audio cables, and the bottom drawer holds power related cables including rechargeable batteries. I like to stay organized so my workflow stays efficient, and I'm always attempting to come up with new ways to improve how I have the room organized. Following the room clockwise, over here we have an electric guitar. It's a Lion by Washburn. It's a Fender Stratocaster knockoff. I owned a real Strat when I was younger, and the Strat was never really my favorite guitar, but after using the Lion, it made me really appreciate the Strat more. Because this guitar, it has problems like it can't stay in tune, and the body and neck just cause too much resonance and humming when you try to play chords. It was previously owned by one of my former roommates who didn't really play very much and kind of just gave it to me. I use it sometimes, but with the assistance of auto-tune plugins. I plan on replacing this guitar with a Les Paul. Les Paul was always my favorite guitar when I was younger, but I never owned one. Every musician has an instrument that makes them sound the way they want to sound, or at least feel like they sound the way they want to sound. And for me, that was a Les Paul. I specifically want to get a Les Paul with a Floyd Rose tremolo, which are pretty rare, but not so much the Gibson brand ones, since a Floyd Rose Gibson Les Paul will price around $4,000. And right now the guitar is not a big priority in my music. The goal in the next few years is that I can start playing guitar live at my shows. Over here is my bookshelf. I have 4 DJ related books. We can talk about them in another video. The reason why I don't have a lot of production related books is because there's a lot of great resource online these days for that. Over here we have the main workstation. Both the desk and the chair came from IKEA. I think it's important to have a comfortable chair since you will be spending hours on this desk. I found this desk blindly shopping at IKEA. I knew I wanted a desk, but I did not know which one to get. What I really liked about this one was when I saw it, there were these outer bookshelves that can be used as speaker platforms. All the shelves, including the main center one, are height adjustable, which make fitting a MIDI keyboard underneath easy. What I didn't realize after we assembled the desk was that there were these hooks under the top platform. I always wanted a rack for my headphones, and I got lucky because that's what we use the pegs for. At the heart of all my gear is my Retina display MacBook Pro. Thanks to an AppleCare replacement, I replaced a late 2011 model with this late 2013 model. The exact value replacement to my previous notebook was actually a Retina display with a smaller hard drive, but Apple gave me the option to upgrade it by paying the price difference. The one I ended up with is a 2.3 gigahertz Intel i7 Ivy Bridge quad-core processor with 16 gigs of RAM, along with a 512 gig solid state hard drive. This thing's a beast. I did a disk speed test on it. On an old school hard drive, you would get around 80 to 120 megabytes per second. I read that solid states you can read and write somewhere around 250 to 500. But my disk speed test on this machine clocked in anywhere between 680 to 720 megabytes per second. So this thing has a fast hard drive on top of being fast. She's actually the most reliable computer I ever owned, and she has to be because right now she's the only computer I have and I do everything on her. It's not really the smartest thing to have all your eggs in one basket, but right now she's doing fine. While for now she sits in the center, I do plan on getting a docking station and a Thunderbolt display, possibly the LG, as my main computer monitor. For a brief summary of the software I use, my main DAW for music production is Ableton Live. I use Adobe products for video editing as well as graphics. When I spin, I have my options between Serato products, Traktor Scratch, and Rekordbox. I also have a ton of plugins and sample libraries I've either purchased or created over the years. I do have Final Cut Pro and Logic Pro, but I don't use them very much. I have them there in case I have to work on a project with someone who prefers using that software. As I mentioned, I do have Native Instruments Traktor Scratch, and what's ironic about it is, although I primarily use Serato, I only have the timecode vinyl for Traktor, which I cannot use at the moment anyways because I don't have a Native Instruments certified interface or mixer. However, the reason why I purchased the timecode kit is because during the time, Traktor and Traktor Scratch were unusually priced at exactly the same $100. So I figured maybe one day I'll get into Traktor with timecode and I might as well get the full timecode kit. Overall, I like having choices, and that's why I don't only use one software to spin with or one DAW to use. To the right of the computer, I have an Akai APC-40. This APC-40 was actually previously owned by Brad Goldman, who is the previous owner of Des Moines Music Festival 515 Alive, as well as the current coordinator for Climax. I'm not well versed in clip launching or performing, so for a while I was using the APC-40 for simple mix downs, but lately I haven't been touching the APC-40 as much. I'm working on learning more about Ableton as a live performance tool, as well as reconfiguring the APC for softwares like Traktor and Serato. Today, the reason why I don't use the APC-40 as much, even for mixdowns, is because I started using my iPad with Retina display for wireless MIDI apps created for DAW control. What's awesome about these apps is the fact that for $5 to $25, they can emulate hardware that costs $1,000 or more, like the Mackie Control Universal. I used to use one app called DAW Control, whose graphics interface was modeled to look exactly like the MCU. Then I upgraded to one called DAW Remote, which has a darker graphics interface, which I like because it's easier on my eyes when I have the lights dim. And it also has a customizable interface where you can move functions around. What's awesome about these apps is they run MIDI through your Wi-Fi. This becomes really useful if you have a studio that has a separate live room from the control room, and you need to be in the live room for any reason, whether it's to record your own vocals and instruments or to conduct your performers. It would actually act as a wireless remote straight from the live room. The only drawback is the fact that the apps I use are not expandable to another iPad or scroll capable to extend past the normal 8 tracks. I am, however, looking to upgrade to the Lemur app, especially since I saw it being used with multiple iPads to control 16 tracks, which I think is pretty cool. I also have an app called Air Display, which also allows me to use the iPad as an external monitor. Similar to the DAW control apps I have, I sometimes prefer using Ableton Live's mixer section. Most times I prefer just using the DAW control apps because the external monitor lags my graphics card. When I'm out spinning, I use the Serato Remote app as an accessory to Serato DJ or Scratch Live. I like this app because it can do a few things the Pioneer DDJ SP1 controller can do for a fraction of the cost. Serato has made a few functions not mappable via MIDI, but the Serato Remote retains control over some of those functions, like the splicer. Whenever I need to play keys, I move the iPad from the center to the side, and I have an Axiom 61 MIDI keyboard with a sustain pedal. I chose the Axiom because of the fact it has transport controls, an array of knobs, sliders, and drum pads. On the road or in a small setup, this is all the important things you would need in one controller. In practice, I don't use them very much. In fact, I have gotten so accustomed to years of penciling in my notes and using the mouse to control my parameters that I only use the keyboard for referencing notes and chords. Then I choose to pencil them in with the mouse later on. Sometimes I will record so it has that organic feel, but many times in electronic music, I'm going for precision. To the left of my computer, I have an Akai MPD 18 drum pad. It's my roommate's, and he and I never use it. I just wanted to fill an open gap on the side of my desk, so I found it at home. I'm not gonna lie, I do like the MPC style pads over a lot of other drum pads, and sometimes just for fun, I like to do some finger drumming with some songs. The MPC style actually feels like it could take a better beating than my Korg. Speaking of the Korg, over by the DJ equipment station, I have a black Korg pad control. Drew Soy and I own 2 white ones over the years, and we pretty much beat them up from constant use with Serato and taking them to gigs. I picked up this black one recently specifically so I could use it for the Red Bull 3 style if I get chosen. For the most part, the iPad Serato Remote app replaced my pad control for me. For Drew, it was his Rain 62, but if I ever want to do my drum pad scratching again, I kind of like to keep this around just for that. I use a Macali full keyboard. It's a cheaper USB keyboard made for the Mac, and it's a bit noisy when you type on it. Feels a little plasticky. I tried to go cheap and get a $15 Bluetooth keyboard from Amazon, but it kept disconnecting, so I replaced it with this one. For comfort, I do want to upgrade it to the Bluetooth Apple brand keyboard. It does feel a lot better, and I want to keep it away from the USB stream because I have so many devices on it. I'm also so used to the MacBook's trackpad, so I decided to get a Magic trackpad instead of a Magic mouse. Over here to the left, I have a Tascam DR05 portable recorder. I use it for multiple reasons. One of them is to record with the lav mic. The other is to record ambient crowd noise, or sometimes I just need it to record line input. I also have an LG DVD writer, which I used to burn CDs since the newer MacBooks don't have disc writers anymore. I also have a pair of Apple earbuds, one of them having a sports band on them, which is pretty cool because my biggest problem with the earbuds is they always fall out of my ear.